Feel fully, but don't indulge them either. This is emotional freedom. Freedom is not being frightened. Oh, here comes a negative emotion. Oh, here comes fear. Oh, here comes hurt. Oh, here comes guilt. What shall I do? Don't be frightened of anything. Feel, watch, use this tool to bring yourself back to neutrality again.
Hello, I'm Kanika Gupta. I'm a wellness therapist and a life coach specializing in yoga, meditation, and EFT. I was born with questions in my mind, and as I matured, I realized the purpose of these questions was not limited to finding answers, but also to explore the questions. Welcome to Open Minds. This is an invitation to open your minds to thoughts, ideas, knowledge, and perspectives in the areas of health, wellness, and everything connected with our existence and maybe beyond. Topic for today's discussion is EFT or Emotional Freedom Techniques. And to do full justice to this topic, I have with me my mentor, the one who introduced me to EFT and much more, Rohini Singh. Rohini Singh is a spiritual mentor, healer, author, and a corporate facilitator. She has been conducting workshops and retreats on healing and empowerment both within India and internationally for over 3 decades. She is an expert in variety of healing and self-growth modalities like Reiki, EFT, Enneagram, family constellations, to name a few. She is the author of Hay House best-selling books, Miracles with EFT, The Only Way Out is Within, and Free Fall. Rohini has been an EFT practitioner and guide since the year 2000. And as Gary Gray, founder of EFT, had put it long back, she is probably the first EFT practitioner in India. So let's welcome Rohini Singh.
Welcome, ma'am. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Kanika. So happy to be here with you. And we're talking about one of our favorite subjects, EFT,
EFT.
Emotional Freedom Technique, which I know you have used a lot and I have used a lot. So very happy to be here.
And the first question is, what is EFT?
EFT stands for, as I just said, Emotional Freedom Techniques. And actually, it is as grand sounding. It is a simple little tool which is as grand sounding as it does sound. Emotional freedom, something which we are all looking for. And it's very simple, but just because it's simple doesn't mean it doesn't have very profound and very lasting effects. It is based on tapping, actually. Tapping like this at end points of energy meridians. What are energy meridians? They're tracks of energy which flow in the body. And these are all points which are actually ancient points on which, for example, acupuncture is based, which is used in very many energy healing modalities. In fact, EFT has been called acupuncture minus needles, which means if you went to an acupuncturist, he would put a needle where he thinks your energy is blocked. So with EFT, we just unblock the energy by tapping. And it is really magical because, as you yourself may have experienced many times before, years and years of hurt, resentment, physical pain, mental trouble, emotions can just be cleared so very easily. So to start with, I won't say more than that. But I hope this has excited people because I think this is where we are all trapped.
Definitely, I'm sure. I mean, it excited me when I heard it for the first time. But again, I'm sure many of us must be having the question, which I also had. What is emotional freedom, and how does that emotional freedom and that blocking of the energy connected?
So, I used to, in my live workshops, this is how we used to start the workshop. I used to ask, like, suppose I offered you emotional freedom. I'm giving you a technique that can give you emotional freedom. So what would it mean to you? And not surprisingly, people would have many different answers to this. Like some people would say, for example, not feeling any negative emotions. Some people would say being able to control emotions. Some people would say being always in a positive and a happy frame of mind. And then it would be a very interesting discussion because, actually how we have gotten blocked and how we have gotten repressed is because we don't accept both sets of emotions. We have labeled them. This is positive, this is negative. I don't want the negative. I want only the positive. And then we strive very hard to focus on only the positive and not pay attention to the negative, push the negative away. Actually, this makes trouble in our body because we repress things. And these repressed things finally become disease. So this cannot be emotional freedom. This cannot be freedom. So how do we know what is emotional freedom? Actually, emotional freedom is how we were born, how we are as children. Now, if you think of yourself as a child, you don't repress anything. If you're feeling hatred towards somebody, you express it. If you fall down, you cry 100%. If you're playing 100%. You're building blocks. There's no multitasking. We are just there in the moment. And when we feel something, hurt, upset, physical injury, we just howl. And after some time, what happens? You ask that child in the evening, oh, you remember you fell down? You hurt yourself? Child won't remember. This is natural emotional processing. So we have begun to block out certain things. So what do we have to relearn? We have to relearn to feel like a child. To meaning feel fully, feel 100%. Don't store up emotions. Don't store up emotions. Don't keep a residue in your body. Feel fully, but don't indulge them either. This is emotional freedom. Freedom is not being frightened. Oh, here comes a negative emotion. Oh, here comes fear. Oh, here comes hurt. Oh, here comes guilt. What shall I do? Don't be frightened of anything. Feel, watch, use this tool to bring yourself back to neutrality again. Because if you're fearful of something, that cannot be freedom. Yeah. Cutting out, cutting out negative emotions. I mean, it's very stressful. Let them come. Let hurt also come. Let anything come, but know how to deal with it.
So essentially, emotional freedom is not about getting rid of the emotions, but it's no judgment about the emotion because I think that's what I'm assuming. The child, when it cries. And when it laughs, it laughs. And I want to share something very interesting here since you were talking about child. So my sister is a pediatric surgeon and she does very serious, she meets serious patients and those are all, many are newborns, many are like toddlers. And at times they might be suffering for maybe a very painful or life-threatening disease. And she always say, when babies, they are in pain, they cry. But when they are not in pain, even if they have cancer, they won't. They will start playing the next moment. That is something very beautiful that we can learn from babies. And there's another thing which you also said, feeling it fully, but not indulging in the emotions. And this is also where many people have a lot of questions. I remember I did not know the difference between the two. So can you please share what is the difference?
Actually, the two go together. If you really feel things fully and you don't attach a story to it and you don't insist on keeping that story in your portfolio, then you can just feel and let go. But we don't let go. Suppose somebody has made a hurtful remark to you. Actually speaking, we may say, I want to be peaceful. I want to be fine. But I want to be fine, but I don't want to let go also. You cannot be fine if you keep holding on. But we hold on to these things as if they are treasures. We hold on to them as if, oh, this is something so important. Somebody said this to me. And sometimes it happens. It's like, it happened. I'll tell you a very funny example in a EFT class in which perhaps you might even have been there. There was a young girl who came who had a recent breakup with her boyfriend. And she was angry as hell. So when I asked her, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much is your anger? 0 to 10. She said anger is 25. And then we began tapping. We began using the modality. We began tapping on the various points. And after some time, she looked very peaceful. So I asked her, so how are you feeling now? How much is that level? She said 3. I said, okay, now don't keep it 3. Bring it down to 0. And she looked at me and she said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to keep 3. Otherwise, I won't know how to behave towards him. So see, this is why sometimes we hold on, because we feel, oh, this is wisdom. This hurt, I have to preserve. I have to remember next time I have not to behave nicely with this person. Who suffers? Who suffers? You don't have to be foolish. You don't have to be foolish. But at least inside yourself, get it out of your system.
It's just, I smile because I remember meeting such circumstances even in your workshops, and people literally ask, I'm not going to let it go. I want to punish that person by holding on to the hurt. And I remember that, there's a beautiful quote, which I think is by Buddha. They say, holding a burning coal in your hand does not harm other person, but it burns your hand. So
you brought up something very, very important, Kanika. You brought up something very important, because when you begin to understand what is like really letting go and what is forgiving, because we say, I don't want to let go because I want to make him or her suffer. But do they suffer? By your holding on, one has to really pause and think, who suffers? Does the other person even know what you're thinking or know what you're feeling? No, perhaps not. In fact, sometimes we get very annoyed because we feel the person hurt me, and now the person is traipsing around and seems quite happy. And that gives me even more trouble. But by my holding on, I have to understand, by my holding on, only I am hurting. In fact, I'm allowing that same person who may have hurt me once to hurt me again and again and again. And this is one of the places where a tool like EFT can bypass your mind. We are saying something so important here. It can bypass your mind, because your mind says, no, I don't want to let go. I don't want to let him or her off the hook. But here comes an energetic tool, which is why EFT has actually been called the missing piece of the healing puzzle. Because it doesn't work on your mind. It works on the energetic fuse. Like Gary Craig says, when something happens, there's an energetic fuse. It fixes the fuse. It's like a trip up in your box. It's a trip up in the electricity box. Electricity gets cut. Now you put that trip switch up, which is what EFT does. And electricity begins to flow again. But you have to realize you are the one who are allowing someone else to hurt you if you don't let go. The second question, maybe I don't know how to let go. That's where EFT comes in.
You have just shared the answer of the second question. How does that balancing of the energy help you towards emotional freedom? You just answered that. And in that, I also remember something you used to, used to always share in your EFT workshop. What is emotions? It's energy in motion.
Motion, yeah. It's energy in motion. And actually, when we begin to understand that, then we understand that, all it is energy in motion. Some are comfortable, some are uncomfortable motions, but not to be frightened of any. Let the uncomfy come, let the comfy come. Honestly speaking, if you don't get attached to it, you don't fix a story onto it. Like, for example, let's say fear. In these days of the pandemic, there's so much uncertainty, so much fear. It's all around us. Actually, we can't help. Somehow it's almost like we are breathing it in, because everybody is speaking about it. The forwards we receive are about what happened to this one or what happened to that one. So there's no need to make an emotion yours. How do we make it ours? Suppose I'm feeling fear because there's fear all around me. Now, in order to control it, it's almost like to control it, I try to understand it, which is the only way we have dealt with things. If I understand why I'm feeling fearful, I'll be able to get out of it. And I attach one of my own stories to it. Then fear comes inside your house, inside your energy system. So sometimes there can be like, sometimes people say, I was feeling sad, but I really don't know why. It can happen. There may be just sadness. It's like, and it's a great thing to understand, like how energy differs even from place to place. When you go to a hospital, how do you come out feeling? Don't you
Drained.
come out? Yeah, you feel drained, you feel fearful, you feel like in a way sick. You go to a nice place in nature, you go into a forest, you go even to a beautiful sacred place, you go to a river and you put your feet inside it. How do you feel? You feel good, you feel relaxed, you feel happy, because nature has like a very soothing, healing energy about it. So one must begin to, through a tool like this, begin to understand also how energy works in a deeper way.
Beautiful. I think I read it somewhere in your book. We are all trapped in the cage of our minds, and the door opens from inside. Will you please elaborate on that?
So, sweetheart, Kanika, uh, we are in a sort of prison. We are in a sort of cage. And what are the bars of this cage? The bars of this cage are these things, these emotions which don't allow us to be free, meaning there can be guilt, there can be shame, there can be fear, there can be hurt, there can be resentment, there can be anxiety about the future, there can be regret about the past. These are all the bars of this cage which we don't let go of. But you know what is the magical thing is? We keep waiting that somebody will come and they'll open the cage, and one day somebody will open the cage and we'll step out and we'll be free. But you know what? The magical thing is, this door to this cage opens from inside. Meaning, who has the key? Meaning, you have the key. What does this mean? This means, at the moment, our happiness for many of us is dependent on external circumstances being okay, isn't it? If
Yes.
this is okay, is okay. If this one behaves okay, if that one behaves okay, if this, goal which I've set for myself is achieved. I mean, if the pandemic goes away, if
Exactly.
all this, isn't
Corona.
it?
Yeah.
Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be happy. So, which means the key to my happiness is where? It's not in my control. Somebody has to make it okay outside. But now we are saying, oh, this door opens from inside. What does this mean? So, this, when we begin to understand, it is the beginning of self empowerment. Meaning, I'll ask like a very general question, and the first answer for many may be no, but we have to think again. Meaning, is it okay? Can I be okay? Can I be at peace? Can I be happy if things around me are not okay? Now, at a certain stage in our journey, we'll say, of course not. Which kind of question is this? And actually, we put all our energy into making things okay outside, trying to fix a person, waiting for that person to change, trying to fix a circumstance, waiting for the circumstance to change. And then we get frustrated and despairing and sad because things are not changing. The person around you may not want to change. So, how are you ever going to be happy? Is it possible to be happy no matter what? When you answer yes to this question, you are starting on your journey of empowerment. And you are beginning to understand the door of this cage opens from inside. I can be free whenever I wish. Now, wow. I wish that whoever is listening to this can feel some relaxation. They may not know how, but they should feel some liberation, some relaxation, some easing up. Really? Is this true? And if you allow this understanding inside your heart, then you begin to look, okay, this lady, I heard these two ladies talking. This is what they said. How do I go forward? And you will find many modalities. You will find many books. You will find many paths. The one which is right for you will come to you. You have to say, yes, I want to be empowered and I want to be okay. You have to take this vow. I will be okay. I will be peaceful. I will be happy no matter what. And then a whole different ball game starts. And again, EFT is a great tool on this journey. Actually, there's nothing you can't use it for. You can use it to become enlivened in a class. If you're feeling lethargic, you can use it to go to sleep because you have insomnia. It's too good.
Yeah, and to first day of EFT workshop, we used to ask people, come with your physical aches and pains. Don't leave them at home. It works wonderfully on physical aches and pain, not just the emotional kind. However, there is a physical pain and emotional connection, like body mind connection as well. But on the face of it, I have seen so many people coming with back pain, neck pain. They can't move their neck, and they just feel better after few rounds of EFT. And at times they cannot even believe it.
He said this, it often works when nothing else has.
Nothing else.
And you must be remembering that elderly lady. Do you remember that elderly lady who came to one of our workshops? When everybody shared why they were there, she said, oh, I'm here because my friends have pushed me to come here. And those days we used to have a 2-day workshop. And at the end of the workshop, end of the day, I used to say, now go home and try it on somebody in your own house.
Yes.
It can be a person, it can be a pet, it can be, anybody. And she quite grumpily, she said, I don't have anyone at home. I only have my husband, and he's not going to allow me to do any of this hocus pocus on him. I said, it's your homework. You have to do it. And then the next morning when she came, she shared that she went home and she told her husband that, listen, I've learned this thing and I'm supposed to do homework. So you'll have to allow me to do it on you. And her husband had like chronic backache. Like she said, he could not even, when he used to brush his teeth, he could not bend over the sink like we do, bend over. He used to like go straight down, brush and like gargle. So she says she did. I mean, it became like, for me, it became, legendary 3 rounds. She said, I did 3 rounds of EFT. And she said, I noticed later in the evening when he brushed his teeth, he bent right over. She said he had not bent like that in like years. He bent right over. And then she said, so I asked him, like, you seem to be feeling better. Like you bent over, you don't have pain. He said, well, I don't have pain now, but I will have pain because I'll be stiff in the morning. See, this is how the mind works. Because after sleeping, I'll be stiff. So the next morning, she said, she quietly noticed, again he bent over. So again she asked him, are you feeling stiffness in your back? And he said, no, actually I'm not. And she came to class and she shared this. So this was, an elderly person with chronic backache from many, many years. But, we have to remember physical pain, it has an energetic component. And when you go straight to the energy body and you are able to handle it, many things, Kanika, as you know, many things have an emotional reason. And sometimes we are not really ready to give up the emotional reason. But if you combine a thing like EFT with the body-mind connection, with the emotions that may be repressed, and you're able to release all of it, you may be very surprised how much relief you can get. You may also remember that person, he was supposed to be going abroad to study. And he was so excited. But when he went for his medical, they said, you have stones in your kidney. You cannot go. So he came to class crying. Then I said, kidney stones means what? It means held anger, held hurt, held resentment. I said, do you resonate with any of these? He said, yeah, I have a lot of anger. I said, now you work on it. Work on it and let's see what happens. In 3 weeks, he was clear and he went.
Wow.
So, if you read my book, then there's like pages and pages of miracles.
Yeah, so first thing that we have shared about the book, Rohini has written a wonderful EFT book, and that is, well, I can show it here, but I don't think it will be clear and it will be a mirror image. So it's Miracles with EFT by Rohini Singh, and it's a Hay House publication. You will find it easily online, and it is very economically priced. But the wisdom in it is actually priceless. So do go and buy it.
To tap for you, then connect with Kanika, because she's a wonderful tapper. She has used it a lot to great effect, and plus she has so many other tools in her bag, including yoga and so many other things that she's done. So If you want to be more relaxed about it and you just want for her to tap for you or guide you, I would say that's a great way to be introduced to this tool.
And I think I did my first workshop of EFT with you. I still remember it was January 2004. And yes, it looked little, it is a funny thing, when you see it for the first time. I mean, it goes something like this when you tap on your energy point. And honestly, I was a little embarrassed to do it. But since there were, I think, 50 people in that huge workshop and everyone was doing it, so I didn't mind it. So, but it was just so simple and it took me a while to really get it. But when I started seeing its magic, there was no looking back. And I think I'm the one of the biggest fan of EFT. I don't know. I mean, Rohini has taught many people, but I can definitely say for myself, I am a huge fan of EFT. And this is despite when I was already into yoga. So I love yoga and I've seen its benefits. But even alongside yoga, I've always kept, it was always yoga and EFT because there are at times where, like, if I'm fine, if a person is coming to me in extreme emotional overwhelm, I cannot tell that person, okay, let's do Surya Namaskar. They don't have the energy. They may not move. They're feeling overwhelmed. But in those times, they want to speak. And also, they want to speak. Here I have something with me. Okay, you want to talk? Let's just talk. You can keep on tapping, talking while I tap. And I don't let them stop. So it starts with catharsis. They just literally release. If they're crying, they'll cry, cry, cry. And after some time, they'll just calm down. Maybe that is a good time to start with yoga. But then, of course, you don't need it in that moment. So at times when I can't use, yoga postures or even breath work, meditation, definitely, if you're extremely overwhelmed, you cannot do the typical traditional meditation, maybe something else, all those new age meditation techniques, maybe that can be tried, but not those traditional meditation. That's not the time. There is it's like literally you're feeling nausea, you need to puke, and I'm asking you, okay, quiet, relax, breathe. No, at that moment, the only thing you need is to go to the washroom and puke. I cannot distract you. I cannot tell you, oh, it's going to be all okay. Just go lie down, breathe easy. No, it's not going to work. And so basically, when you want to, there's a emotional nausea, and only thing you want to do is just to puke it out. I would actually want you to puke it out because there is something which is body is rejecting, and that's how even when you are tummy upset, that's why the vomit. There's a function for vomit. It wants to expel what is not suiting the body. So body is ready to expel what is not suiting it. Maybe it's the emotion, and all you need to is to just release it out, and EFT helps to process it.
So, Kanika, you brought up a very important point about children and how they come with a very free emotional processing system, but we wreck it. As you mentioned, it's not okay to be this, that, and the other. Negative emotions are pushed aside. It's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to be jealous, for example. And it's sometimes one of the first things that, let's say, an elder child faces. But what does he hear or she hear? A new baby comes into the family. Elder child has been used to having all the attention. And now suddenly the attention is divided. How would they not feel jealous? But there are very few mothers who would say, to explain it to them, it's okay to feel what you're feeling. Become aware of it. It's okay to not be okay also. It's okay, overwhelm and everything else. First, parents have to understand this to be able to impart it to their children. Like, what does a mother normally say if a child is crying? They've fallen down. What does a mother say? A mother will usually. It's not, nothing has happened. Kuch nahi hua. Nothing has happened. It's all okay. Or she'll offer a sweet, or she'll offer a chocolate to distract the child. And those are the things that we use even in adult life. Is first tell yourself nothing has happened, push it aside, exactly as you mentioned, or binge on something. Binge on sweets, binge on food, to fill that gap. So to be able to, I was very delighted to hear very recently that my little grandkid, who is now 4 years old, he suddenly began to have, at night he would wake up crying. And my daughter presumed that perhaps he had had a bad dream or he had some anxiety or whatever. So I told her, use EFT. So they began tapping at night before he went to sleep. And now every day he asks for it. And he calls it tak tak. Let's do some papa. So now they, he reads a book. I mean, they read a book together, then they do tak tak together. And this is a great practice, to go to bed, like our elders used to say in the old days, don't go to sleep with anger. Just shed it. I mean, these were good words, but we don't know how to apply them. If you're feeling hurt, you're feeling angry, you're feeling hurt and angry. So sometimes you need a tool which is at a higher level than your mind to just release stuff you don't need. So I would suggest, as I always do to everyone who learns EFT, at night, review your day. If there's anything in it which seems incoherent, please tap for it, get it out of your system, get a good night's sleep, and wake up the next day with good, fresh energy.
And we are talking about it like tapping, and you're naming it as tak tak. Why actually the child thought it was tak tak? A little bit of idea, maybe good.
So the actually underlying foundational statement of EFT is all negative emotions are a disruption in the body's energy system. So as Gary Craig, from whom I learned actually, used to describe it, like every time something happens, suppose somebody says something to you which upsets you or hurts you, the energy system gets disrupted, meaning there's like a fuse trip, like how he used to call it, is a zist in the energy system. Okay. So now you come with this tool, which is actually tapping, meaning you would be tapping like this and like this and like this. You would learn these points. What are these points? They are the end points of energy meridians which carry these emotions. So as you tap, meaning you are not encouraged to like wallow in it or think too much, but you bring up the emotion. And as you bring up the emotion and you begin to tap, that fuse gets righted. So it's very funny because you can say, like, you can start with a level of intensity, level of 10, but in like a few minutes, you can be down to like, a person will characteristically say, well, I'm not feeling that anymore. It's very low key that way, there's no bells ring and no people jump up and down, but it's suddenly like forgiveness, for example. Maybe you're dealing with hurt of ages, of many years, but suddenly you just feel a neutral blankness. This is what you always feel with EFT, neutral blankness. And it's easy to understand because why does an emotion have, let's say, power over you? Why do we say we are trapped by emotions? Actually, because of the intensity that we give to it. Let's, for example, even imagine that, there's 3 or 4 people and the same thing happens to each of them. Each person is going to take it differently, isn't it? So the intensity that you attach to it is what is going to allow that emotion to have a hold over you. So when using a tool like EFT, you are able to kind of neutralize it. You don't forget anything. You remember that, oh yeah, yesterday, Kanika said this hurtful remark to me. But yet when I see Kanika, there isn't an overwhelm of emotions. And this is technically what happens when we are living with people. Maybe there is somebody who regularly hurts you. How will you be free of it? Many of us live very victimized lives thinking, oh, when the person changes, I'll be okay. Or we say to ourselves, a statement like, but I was okay, my mood was okay, everything was okay, but my boss said this, or my partner said this, or this thing happened, or that thing happened. So how do I get myself back to that good mood? I can't always wait for somebody else to change their ways.
Yep.
So this brings you back to neutrality, but it doesn't mean that you become foolish or you don't know what to do. If you need to tell somebody something, you need to say, I won't take any more of this. You do it, but you do it from a very quiet, non-egoistic, but very firm space. And actually, this is the only way that somebody else will hear you. We all have something called the ego, right? It's a sense of self, separate sense of self. So when you say something hurtful to me, it's my ego's duty to rise up against you. Now, if you're trying to tell me something or you're trying to make a point, actually, my ears are closed. The ego has closed my ears. I cannot hear anything that you're saying. So even if you want me to hear, even though the words may not be pleasing, but you want me to hear them, you must speak in a way that my ego doesn't get incensed and it goes beyond the ego straight to my heart. Then I can hear you. And that you can only do when you yourself are in a good, stable, centered position. Otherwise, you speak from ego and so will I. And as they say, the baat badi jati hai. I mean, it becomes worse and worse and worse. And we have like, many arrows stuck in our hearts. Energy is getting blocked. Blocked energy held over consistent times becomes disease. Disease, meaning dis-ease, discomfort. It manifests as pain. And then that's when you begin to look at it again. It's actually a call for healing. When you have pain in some part of your body, it's actually your body reaching out and telling you, hey, you've got emotions repressed in this part of your body. The body is such an amazing wellness lab, you could say. You don't need anybody to tell you where you're holding on. Your body will tell you. You have to listen.
That's beautiful. You have just touched this concept of body-mind connection, which is also the basis of EFT. And there was a beautiful EFT story, which actually was my first introduction to how, or just, first time I noticed how body and mind could be connected. That lady who was afraid of water, Mary, don't jump in the pool.
So it was not a story which happened with me, but it was the origin of EFT. Because she had gone to a doctor to whom she used to go, who was a psychotherapist, who actually was Gary Craig's teacher. So she had gone to him and she had been going for many years. And she used to go for this fear of water, fear of being, even the shower used to scare her. And then one day when she had gone for one of her sittings, he had begun reading about, energy meridians and energy points. And so as he was taking out her card and things, he said, Mary, why don't you just tap over here? Because he knew that this is the point for the stomach. She used to have churning in her stomach. And he said, just tap over, I'll just be back. And she says that she tapped for some time and then suddenly she jumped off her chair and said, I don't feel that fear of water anymore and I'm going to test it out. And the EFT manuals, it's a very funny visualization. They show Mary running and the doctor running after her and saying, careful, Mary, you don't know how to swim. But apparently she got in the water and she did not have her fear of water anymore, which actually showed how, the two were so deeply connected. And again, I don't know if you were at that workshop, but I think I have an even more miraculous story because there was somebody who came with problems of acidity. And she used to have I think 4 tablets in a day. She had to have 4 tablets to keep the acidity under check. So she came to the workshop. We began tapping. And when lunchtime came, she said, well, normally I'm supposed to have a tablet before and I'm supposed to have a tablet after lunch. So shall I have it? So I'm not one who ever tells anybody not to have medication that they're on. That's not done. But I told her, I said, how are you feeling right now? She said, I'm feeling very fine. So I said, so the medicine is with you. Why don't you help yourself to lunch? And as soon as you feel that you have any need to have the medication, go ahead and have it. So she had lunch and she said, it's very strange. It's the first time in some 20 years I've had lunch, but that, that acid reflux or whatever she used to get is not happening. So I'll wait to have the medicine. She waited. And the next day she rang me up crying. She said, today I had toast after 20 years. She could not digest it. So, but what happened during the session, Kanika, was as she was tapping for the acidity, she suddenly came up with a lot of anger for her mother. And she said, I had a very strict childhood and my mother was not very loving to me and so on and so on. So we tapped for all those feelings. Then she came into guilt because she said, but my mother's not well these days. She's bedridden and I don't like feeling these feelings. I said, yeah, but you're only feeling them to release them and to feel genuine love for her. So please just trust me and keep tapping. So she carried on. So once she was, you see how this acidity was connected to some emotions from her childhood. And in most EFT cases, you will find when you do a session of EFT, you will find that there's something way back in the past which doesn't know how to get released. But suddenly when you're able to do it, and then after that, she wrote me, after a few months, she wrote me that, I really don't need to take the tablets, but my mind refuses to believe it. So even though I really don't need it, but I do take one tablet, just instead of the four, I take one tablet, but I'm absolutely fine. So this is emotional freedom, isn't it? This is
Beautiful.
being free, being joyful. Yeah.
This beautiful. And if all of us have noticed here that this lady did not, I mean, she tapped for anger towards her mother, and what got healed was her
Correct.
acidity. So this is
Absolutely.
a very indirect way. I mean, we may not think, how my acidity could be connected to the
You
childhood anger towards my mother. Or
you
in
can't.
that EFT story, that lady actually tapped under the eye for her churning in the stomach. He made her tap for that. And suddenly, out of the blue, she said, like, I don't feel the fear of water. And I also remember there was a lady in your, who came for your workshop, and I think she could not hear from both of her ears. And I think it came out of because her husband used to nag a lot. You may be surprised that, how can it be connected, but you have to be there to believe it. I saw it right in front of my eyes, so many magical things that I had no other choice to believe it. Plus, things happened with me that I could not deny. Now, EFT is scientifically proven. Even people in the science community and the medical community are acknowledging EFT, and they're acknowledging it's not just a placebo effect. There is actually a well-established connection with the nervous system. They have found, but once you experience the benefits, you at times don't need a scientific explanation. The mind body connection is real. It's as real as when you feel anxiety and suddenly your tummy starts cramping. It's as real as when you feel nervous about something, your knees start feeling weak. And even we say that my knees are feeling, I'm feeling weak in my knees. So it is as real as that. Those are like incredible two stories on EFT, and just how our body and mind are actually more intimately connected than we think them to be. How did you got to know about EFT? You learned it in, I think, 1999, when not many people knew about it at that time, and I'm not sure how many people knew about it in India. And so, how did you get to know about EFT? And yeah,
It was very new. It was very new at that time. And I remember I used to do a lot of corporate training programs at that time. So one of my colleagues, when I was traveling, I was going to actually leave my daughter off in school abroad, and I was going to visit my aunt in San Francisco. So this colleague just threw it over his shoulder. Hey, find out about this new thing. It's called EFT. Find out if you can learn it, or find out whatever is happening about it. So I just asked my aunt with whom I was staying, do you know about this thing called EFT? Would there be anybody teaching it? And you won't believe it, but there was a teacher. She was about 1.5 hours away. She used to do it in a different format, like she would give a class every week. I was there for 3 weeks, and she had like the whole package was 3 weeks. I did my first class on the first day that I reached. I mean, the next after one day. And the last class I did, and I went straight to the airport. So it was just jammed in. Those 3 weeks was her workshop, and it felt like divinely meant for me. And when I was leaving, she said to me, well, I wouldn't say this to everyone, but she just whispered to me, as for you, she said, just go back and start teaching immediately. Perhaps you'll be one of the first people teaching it in your country. So I said, thank you so much. And that's just what I did. I came back and I began teaching it. And after that, actually, everybody who came to my workshops, they taught me. All that I know, I learned from so-called students, or not students, but brave souls who are ready to be free.
Yes, there are words of wisdom that people come out with when they are doing EFT, and at times they are surprised themselves. And for us, it's definitely. I mean, we feel inspired.
Yeah.
So we have understood EFT. We can use it for disturbing emotions, anger, resentment. We have also understood it can be used for physical aches and pain. You have a back pain, you have knee pain, etc. Any other area that we can apply EFT for?
So it is supposed to be excellent for fears. It is excellent for handling addictions. It actually came up and came into prominence in America after the Vietnam War because it was used for to treat people with post-traumatic stress syndrome, which means people who had been in the war and they couldn't integrate back into daily life after everything they had seen and witnessed and experienced. So it helped to neutralize lots of soldiers who were in the war to help them integrate back into life. So it is still a very good uh, modality to use if somebody has been through a trauma, if somebody is grieving and just don't know how to get out of that. So, yeah, I would say these are the areas. Fears and phobias. Lots of fears and phobias can be handled, which otherwise imprison right from simple things to fear of dogs or fear of cockroaches or fear of getting into a lift. So many, fear of heights, many. So it's very useful for that.
You mentioned about PTSD or post-traumatic disorder. So EFT is these days considered to be one of the best therapy. There's one more, which is EMDR, but EFT is also a very good therapy. In fact, it is more effective. It has been found to be more effective than traditional CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy. So it works directly with our nervous system, and results are amazing with trauma. I've been going through some research, amazing results. So I just wanted to add on to that. Actually, I've also worked with many clinically depressed and bipolar patients. I remember some of them.
Some of them I've also worked with. Some of the most touching things have been to work with people who were on drugs, uh, narcotics. So I've done some sessions with them. I've done some sessions with people who were suffering from multiple sclerosis. So, yeah, I mean, actually, frankly, there's nothing you can't use it for. It should be tried on anything and everything. It cannot harm you in any way. If you feel that it hasn't benefited you, it will anyway not harm you. And it's so quick, so simple. So I would suggest to everyone to learn it and use it.
So you not only use it for such disturbing emotion, you also use it to enhance yourself. I remember.
Golfers use it a lot. Golfers use it a lot. Sports people can use it a lot because sports is part of it is technical skills on the field and part of it is mental attitude. So in that realm, it can help you greatly because all artists, performance issues, all artists who have stage fright or fears of how well or not they'll do can be used for that. So, yeah, to get back to your best self, whichever
I
way you
have
understand.
I have a confession here, and this for everyone. So, not many people. I mean, people who are close to me, they know that I don't like being in front of the camera. I just, what is hate? I just hate it, and this has been since childhood. So you can imagine if I'm sitting and doing this this video interview, I tap a lot. Just that, just to actually go about and doing it. Otherwise, I won't do it. So it's so convenient. I won't even feel fear. I won't do it. As simple. I will avoid at any cost. I'm happy to write. I love writing. I'm most expressive when I'm, writing. But to speak and especially to face the camera is just something I don't know why. So I never found out the reason. But I tap and that I see myself in the front of the camera. That means something must have shifted that I'm now doing it. And I still don't know the reason and I don't care to find the reason. So that is also one of the things that at times we think we find the reason, then we can, do something about it. Now here, I still don't know why I hate it so much, but never mind, I'm still doing it because I wanted to do it, as simple as that. So yes, you can do it as a hack if you would like that word, or use it to enhance your potential or performance. And maybe some people, I also applied it a lot in studies. Initially, ma'am, when I joined your workshop, I was not able to focus, and I wanted to study. I was giving some competitive exams, and I wanted to study. So I used it for focus and to be fast. Needed to do some calculation. I wanted to be fast, so I used a lot for focus, and so that my brain works faster. And I think what I don't can't say immediately how it worked on how to make my brain fast, but if your mind is calm, if it can focus, it will be faster. That's how I saw its results as.
It's a great
So
tool for students. Great tool for students.
yeah. And yes, one question, ma'am, which often people want to know: are there any negative effects of EFT?
Not that I.
Yeah,
Not that
even I
I
don't
know.
know anyone. Yeah, I think only negative effect is people laugh at you at times. So I was so crazy about EFT that even when there was a long wait at the traffic light, I used to tap, and people do stare at you. They think you're foolish, and then you get used to it. So I think that could be the only negative
Well,
effect that you.
since you mentioned tapping in a car, maybe we can end with a very funny incident, because once I was at a red light and suddenly I must have been tapping for something. So I was just tapping and I thought, oh gosh, what must people be thinking of me? So I looked to my left and the other person in the other car was also tapping.
Okay,
So
that is
both
interesting.
just coincidentally, but she was tapping, I was tapping, we like smiled at each other, we waved to each other and said, okay,
Okay.
we have a secret tool and we can go forward with this. So
Ma'am, anything else you would like to share? Any last words before we wrap up for today?
learn it, do whatever you need to do to be emotionally free, enjoy life, come back to your center, which is what EFT helps you to do. And center means love. Share love, be love, feel the love. And if you can believe it, a modality can actually help you to do that. So yeah, good luck. You already have a very good teacher in front of you. Reach out to Kanika and start on your journey.
Thank you, ma'am. I want to add something before we wrap up. Hmm. You have an art of making complicated things simple. I remember when I first saw you at that EFT workshop, and the first thing that came to my mind is, after listening to you for some time, oh my gosh, she's making everything simple. Though at that moment I didn't know what I meant by that, but slowly, as I spent more time around you, assisting you in the workshops and just having our conversations over coffee and on phone, I think, not I think, I know I've learned to appreciate the beauty of simplicity, of just keeping the things simple. I think my mind, or just my personality, it is naturally driven towards complications. It likes it, and I know it. But and and even as a child, I think I love the most complicated, twisted problems, and I was happy, and I used to get a juice. When I used to be involved and on the edge of getting frustrated with that problem. But maybe in studies it was fine. But what happened as I grew up? I started, I adopted the same way of handling things, handling day to day life situations as well. And, you know, slowly, and before you know it, you get deeper and deeper in that web of complications, wherein maybe the solutions of the problem could be somewhere hidden behind the veil of simplicity. To put it simply, the next, if you're experiencing anguish, distress, pain, one way is to go into thinking mode, rationalizing why did it happen to me? How could it, what could I have done differently so that, you know, it wouldn't have happened? Or what can I learn from it? That is also one of the biggest trap. What can I learn so that it never happens in future? Or why me? Or why that person did it to me? Instead of getting to through, instead of going through that route, instead we can just focus on, is there a way I can keep it simple? And maybe first focus on yourself, and just see how I am feeling in that moment. Maybe I'm disturbed. Find a simple technique like EFT, give it some time, do for a few minutes, and after a few minutes, you may not feel that distress or turmoil anymore. Then isn't that isn't that emotional freedom? Isn't that empowerment? And isn't that the solution that we were searching for? So yeah, I think the bottom line would be is in day-to-day life, we may find many complicated situations which may seem complicated, twisted, but the solution might be very simple should we choose to look at it. So on this note, thanks a lot, Rohini, for this insightful conversation. And I'm 100% sure everyone who is listening or watching this video must be feeling equally empowered and inspired as I am right now. And may this be the first one of many more such conversations in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kanika. Thank you so much. Love you.
If you found this video beneficial, like it, subscribe it, and share it with others. I will also be sharing this conversation on Spotify and other podcasts. This was the first conversation in the Open Mind series, and I hope to continue with it on a regular basis. To do this, I will definitely need your support. Support me by sharing this video and spreading the word about open minds with as many as possible. If you have any question or if you learned something new from today's conversation, do share it in the comments section. Link to Rohini's book will be mentioned in the description. Also, join me on my social media account. Again, the links will be mentioned in the description. Thank you. Take care.